I got sacked on maternity leave.
Jess, you didn't get sacked. You got boned.
See, I cannot stand that word, and I wish people wouldn't use it because I find it so offensive.
It has really stuck though. Jess Rowe, welcome
Kate
to No
Langbroek.
Filter.
Aw,
This
so
is a
good to see
conversation,
you.
you too. I think this is a conversation that's been a long time coming because it seems to me that you've been such a presence in our media lives for a long time, but I haven't heard a lot of you on your podcast, which is great. I love some big talk. It's about the other person. Well, this is about you. And you've not always been a person that puts yourself forward first.
Wow, that's very sage of you, I think, to say that, because I'm someone who I think I'm never good at putting myself first.
No, you don't seem like you are.
I always look after everyone else around me. So it's a interesting question, I think, that you ask. And I think it's an interesting time that I'm at in my life now.
Right.
I'm 56.
You just had a birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I mean, I love getting older. I really do. And I know some people say, oh,
what
that's
do you love
a cliche.
about it?
Because I'm more comfortable with who I am.
Right.
And I'm a far happier person now than I was as a teenager, as a 20-something, as a 30-something, and really probably as a 40-something-year-old. I feel that I'm coming more into my own.
You know, when you say you're more comfortable with who you are, who are you?
I am, you know what? I am quirky, eccentric, messy, funny, compassionate, warm, and am passionate about the people in my life. I'm someone who is unapologetic about chasing joy. I want to surround myself more and more with good people, and I want to do things in my life that fill me up as opposed to
deplete you.
Yeah.
Or things that you feel that you have to do.
Indeed.
So what's interesting about you that I never knew was that you've almost got an old-fashioned start to the business in that you were a receptionist
at Channel 9.
A receptionist.
At the wide world of sports.
Really?
I did a journalism degree.
Yeah.
At Bathurst, at what was called Mitchell College, became Charles Sturt University.
Right.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it because I'd grown up in Sydney. I was very much a city girl, and I've had this opportunity to move to study, and I was nervous because it was a big step. It was brand new, living in the country, and I'm so glad I did it. So I had a ball at uni. I took a year off. Actually, I took 2 years off because I deferred my first year, studied for 2 years, took another year off and travelled, and then it was really hard to get back to finish my degree.
Yes.
And I remember my mum said to me,
"That's the problem with a gap year,
oh, it
isn't
is."
it? Yeah.
But I remember mum saying to me, "Now, Jessica, you do realise that most prisoners escape from jail when their parole is almost about to appear. Do not
Right.
escape.
Yeah.
Hang in. You've done so much." So I'm so glad I went back to finish my degree.
Right.
And I realised, though, because I had done quite a lot of work experience over that time, and I knew I just had to get a start, and that start was a receptionist. Like, I sent out video VHS tapes. This was in the days of VHS tapes and of me sort of doing
to networks or
to networks,
Yeah,
to all sorts, to newsrooms all around Australia, and cover letters. And then I got a sort of a job as a receptionist. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to take this. It's a start because someone had said to me early on, take whatever job you can get. Doesn't matter what it is. Get your foot in the door, and once you're there, then you'll meet people, and also you'll work out if you really like it. Is this what you want to be doing? So I remember, though, I was the world's worst receptionist.
I'm not surprised by this. Yes.
Because I'm not organised, and I got flustered, and this was, again, like phones that you'd have to push buttons
and connect people.
Oh, and I would hang up on people all the time, and I knew nothing about sport. I hate cricket. I still hate cricket. It's so boring. I love Formula One now. I didn't at the time appreciate it, but there'd be people ringing up wanting the latest results on this and that, and so that was my very first job.
And yet you must have been, there was something about you which must have been your personality, because it certainly wasn't your technical prowess.
Skills.
Yes.
Well, I think, perhaps it was my willingness to just give it a go. And I was enthusiastic. I've always been an enthusiast for life. And I think that's important. I don't know where did that come from?
What was your upbringing? Where were you? What was your family, and who were you in the family?
Well, I was the eldest.
Yeah.
My parents divorced when I was younger, and yes, I was the eldest. So I was very much the capable one, the tap dancer of the family.
Really? You were the capable?
Yes, I was. Can you believe it? Well, you see, you know what? It's funny you say that, Kate, because a lot of life skills I'm not capable at, but the big things I am very capable. So I'm capable in the emotional matters. But when it comes to, oh my God, I've got to pay this bill, or I've got to register the car. Yes. Yeah. I've got to register the car. Like, what? I don't know how to do that. I'm not capable in that way.
So after being a receptionist, who noticed you?
Well, what I did when I was a receptionist, on the weekends, I was what was called a production assistant, which essentially meant running around with paper scripts for the presenters. So I was wearing overalls, Kate, a bit like you're wearing overalls, running the scripts around. And there was a particular producer, and I was chatting to him about what I wanted to do. And he said to me, why don't you put your voice on this script and we'll just put it to air? Because at the time with the Wide World of Sports, that they had enormous programming on the weekends. There was Sports Sunday, Wide World of Sports, there was sports updates. So I remember it was the stall gift, which is like a race in
the
Victoria.
Famous foot race, yes.
Which I still, all I know about the stall gift is that was my very first voiceover. And so this particular producer said to me, let's do it. And so I put it down, and they ran it on a news update. And on the it was the Wednesday, because we'd get Monday, Tuesday off because we'd work weekends. My boss called me in and said, along with the producer, I want to talk to you about this. And I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble. And he said, I heard your voice on the weekend. I was pleasantly surprised. And I went, yes. And then he said, you can keep doing that. So that was
your entree,
a beginning.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I knew I was not a sports person, and that wasn't going to be where I would keep working, in the sense of, I thought, well, here's my foot. I've got my foot in the door, and I was still sending out VHS tapes to people. And I ended up getting an interview with a beautiful man called Ken Begg, who became a mentor of mine, and he was working in Canberra, and he was head of the newsroom for Prime Television, and he'd been a long time Channel 7 political reporter, but he was now a news director. And he happened to see my VHS tape, and he was looking for a weather presenter. And he got in touch with me, flew me down for an interview, and I mean, a few things didn't happen in terms of someone else got the job. But in the end, this particular person couldn't take the job. So Ken got back in touch with me and said, I'd really like you to have this role. So I went down to Canberra and I was a weather presenter and a reporter, and it was the best possible job because Ken, I think if I didn't have him as a mentor, I wouldn't have stayed in television because he believed in me. He gave me confidence. He let me make mistakes. I remember doing, because I was like anyone, when you first begin, you have a lot to learn.
Yes.
And I remember my darling like grandmother saying to me, because she had copies of my early weather reports, darling, you weren't very good, were you? You were quite terrible. And I was like, actually, you're right. I wasn't very good.
Because you had never done it before.
I'd never done it before. But I remember with Ken, there was a particular night where, because the weather, for people who don't know, so is often that's the stopgap with sometimes you don't have much time, other times you've got a lot of time to fill.
That's where they cushion time-wise whatever's happening in the bulletin.
Yes.
Right.
So sometimes you've got a lot of time, other times nothing. And this particular evening, a whole lot of stories had fallen over, so I had a lot to do. And but when you get nervous, you speak quickly. And I remember Ken coming into the studio, and I'll never forget it. I was like looking down the barrel of the camera talking, and he was just off camera, and he was there going like this to me. Like, slow down.
Yeah.
It's okay. So he had me, and he did that a number of times for me during those years. And so it allowed me to breathe and to believe in myself. And also beautiful Melissa Doyle was the newsreader. And Mel was wonderful because she had more experience than me. And she took me under her wing as well and gave me tips about, because as well as doing the weather each night, I was doing 2 or 3 news stories a day. So it was a lot of work. And so she helped me with things to keep in mind when you're going out interviewing people and you've got to turn it around quickly. So there was a number of people who were very kind and also just looked out for me.
Right.
So it was a great start.
And you also had this work ethic.
Yes, of course I did. And I was ambitious, and I still am ambitious. And I think as women sometimes, especially that time when you're younger and in those decades, you're not encouraged to be ambitious.
Or you can't own
That's right.
your ambition.
Yeah.
You have to act like la, la, la.
Yeah, whatever.
Yes.
And I knew that I wanted to be someone.
What did you want at that point? Like, what would have been the dream? Was it what you ended up doing on the Today Show?
Well, I think my dreams changed over time. And I think as you grow through life, what you think you want isn't actually what you want.
No.
And so, yes, I think definitely then my dream would have been to be on the telly in a sort of a national role, in a significant role. You know what? At the when I was in high school and then doing as a receptionist, I think I wanted to be an overseas correspondent.
Oh,
I had dreams of that.
Yes.
But then
flak jacket?
Well, yes, that.
Right,
but then I had
helmet.
Yeah, all of that. But then I had girlfriends who would just laugh and go, no. Like,
yes.
That's not you. But and the same beautiful girlfriends, one of them now works at UNHCR, and I used to at uni, I'd spend my money on shoes, and I'd have no money left for the week for food. And so I'd go around to her house and she'd to feed me.
Okay.
So
that was the start of her do-gooding.
That's it was, but also too, it was kind of this sort of difference of I had in mind that's what I wanted to do, but really is that what I wanted to do.
And then you ended up being a newsreader?
Yeah, then I ended up, I did the weather. Then I moved to Melbourne where I was a reporter at GTV. And during that time, I really thought, I'm going to leave. I don't want to do this anymore because it was not what I had imagined it would be. did not like it
Ah.
at all. It was a really tough newsroom. I'm not someone who felt comfortable with the style of reporting.
Was it doorstop sort
Yes.
of, right?
Well,
yeah.
it was, I mean, that awful phrase death knocks where
Yeah.
you would have to go and talk to people who had just
Lost
a
someone.
loved one. And but what was very wonderful about that time is the crews that I worked with. There were some wonderful people that I worked with, some beautiful women in that newsroom, and we supported each other through quite a macho environment. And so, say, for example, with those death knocks, I remember the crew saying to me early on, we just call it knocking on the grass. So you don't actually go and do it. So it's essentially you just drive the news car round, you'd park outside the person's house,
right,
and you wouldn't do it.
right.
You tell your boss you did it.
And that they weren't there.
Well, exactly. Yes, no
right.
one answered the door. So that idea of knocking on the grass was literally you weren't knocking on their door.
And yet you're a very compassionate person.
Which was why I was not going to be knocking on someone's door who had just lost someone, because I
Right.
think you are exploiting someone at the very worst time in their life.
And that's a very, I mean, there are people who would say, well, that's the news and that's the job of the news.
But it's not the news.
But also it's a very macho kind of thinking behind it that also seemed to infect probably the whole industry at that time, I imagine. And was that where you had incidences of sexual harassment?
Yes.
That was that same environment. How did that come about? And who were you in the context of that? Very different than you are now.
It's a difficult thing to kind of think about it because it unfortunately is something that has happened to far too many women. And it was at a time when you didn't feel you could speak up because there was a sense of you are so lucky to have this job, and if you make waves, you will lose your job. And I remember, though, calling a very senior person saying, this has just happened to me.
And what was it that had happened?
Well, it was, I had been, it was sort of very narrow corridor, and a particular man sort of rubbed up.
Senior.
Very senior.
Yes, that's always.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Basically rubbed up against me. And it was one of those things where you think, has that happened? Have I? And it's that thread that so many women say, have I imagined that? Or was that just an accident? But it wasn't an accident. He really pushed his body up against me, and I was in a situation that I couldn't get out. And I remember the editor saying to me, are you all right? And I was like, I think so, but it was awful. And I called a very senior person and said, this has happened. And it was then put back on me, well, what do you want to do about it?
Right.
And I knew I had to be quiet. Or I shouldn't say I knew I had to be quiet, but it was made clear to me
there would be a cost,
yes,
and you would be paying it.
Yes, it was. There'd be a consequence, and so it made me think: do I want to raise my voice about this? And what is so infuriating is I'm someone who I do raise my voice, but that's a voice that I've over time become more confident using. And I look at my daughters who are 17 and 19, and what I love is they raise their voice. They call stuff out, and in a way that I did not have the confidence or the courage to do. Like when my daughter Allegra, who's now 19, when she was 14, she was out to dinner with a girlfriend, and they were walking in Bondi, walking past a restaurant, and there were these much older men sitting there looking them up and down and calling out to them. And Allegra basically turned round and said to this man, and I don't swear, so I'm not going to swear, but she said, "Get effed. How old are you? I'm only 14."
Right.
And she told me that, and I was just like, oh, my darling.
Yes.
I mean, there was two things actually.
What would 14-year-old you have done in that?
I would have scuttled away.
Yes.
I would have thought, oh, that's terrible, and sort of scuttled away. But there was a part of me that I was thinking with Allegra, oh, no, be careful, because you don't know then if you yell at someone, what is then going to be the
How
reaction?
They're going to react, yes.
But she said to me, she already had it covered. She's like, Mum, it was in a public place. There was people all around. So, and she said to me, I'm not going to let him get away with that. I'm 14. He was, 20 plus years old. How disgusting.
I do love it that our daughters, our collective daughters, stand on our shoulders because we have learnt how not to be.
Yes.
When you started on the Today Show, which was 2006, which seemed like, yes, world, here I am, glorious, and ended up being a steaming pile of murd.
Yes, yeah. Well, you see, Allegra wasn't born then.
Right.
So
that was when you took the maternity leave. You were pregnant with Allegra.
Exactly. So I got sacked on maternity leave.
Jess, you didn't get sacked. You got boned.
I cannot stand that word, and I wish people wouldn't use it because I find it so offensive.
It has really stuck though. Do you know what I mean?
Don't
because
want it to stick. Because
no, it's stuck as a concept because the word itself denoted the truthfulness of what you were saying. Do you know what I mean? Of your experience. Because it was such a strange expression that at the time I wasn't really familiar with. Like when you know what it means. No, people hadn't heard it. And so you knew that it was in fact what had happened. But we've gone ahead of ourselves here because I'm struck by what you said earlier about who you are as a person. And I would take these things to be strengths, your vivacity, your quirkiness, your colourfulness, your fine feathers of a fine bird. When you started the Today Show, which was with Karl Stefanovic, he was new to the role. Who had been doing it before him and then before you?
Tracy Grimshaw.
Ah, okay. And she'd gone to do
a current affair.
And he had not been doing it for particularly long himself.
That's right. So I think he began with Tracy.
Okay. All right. And then you got the gig. Now this reminds me of, you know how people always say about a boat, it's the best day of your life and the worst day of your life. The best days when you get the boat, the two best days of your life, the day you get the boat, the day you sell the boat. The best day of your life would have been getting that call about you're going to be the new co-host of the Today Show. How was that?
Well, I mean, it's funny. What I try and think about that time is, so 2006, and that is now, what are we now? So 20 years ago. And I'm so mindful of, I don't want a particular time to then define everything about me and how people see me and view me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to give certain people energy that they don't deserve or time.
No.
And so, and I'm a huge believer in put the good energy here because they're not worthy of that negativity.
Yes.
Or
you don't want to
rather,
feed the wrong fire.
No, that's right. And but on a more, I suppose if I look at it more broadly, getting the job, but a whole lot of things had happened because I had been taken to court before I got the job because I left Channel 10.
Right.
And then they sued me for breach of contract.
Wow.
So
they really wanted you.
Well, actually, they didn't because, the point is anyway, but that's also a whole separate saga. So when I got the offer, I was thinking, yes, this is a dream come true. This is what I've been working for.
And perfect for your personality.
Yes, I've dreamt of this. I've worked so hard. I was someone, I'm different now, but I was someone who was very goal-driven. If I do this, if I work hard, if I give these things up, if I focus here, it will pay off. So I had that mindset. That isn't life. I've learnt that, but at the time I was very, boom, career you think is like steps upwards, but it's not. It's non-linear and it's messy. However, I didn't realise that. And so, wonderful. And I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. And went through the court case. That was horrific. Finally got the okay to join Channel 9.
Right.
Brilliant. So because it was a perfect storm. There was the attention on me anyway because of the court case.
Right.
Channel 9 was going through a massive cultural shift.
That was when Eddie Maguire was appointed the head of Channel 9, right? Yeah.
Actually, he wasn't when I began the Today Show, but then he shortly after was.
Right.
So, yes, it was this massive change. And so I was almost sort of the lightning rod for everything, a scapegoat, for want of a better word. But again, what's so important to me is that is just a weeny part of my story. And it's a public part, but it's a small part. And I don't.
No, but the point is, Jess, that is what has led you to you now.
True.
So this is, yes, of course, but such a crucial part of it because it was brutal. And people experience things in life that are brutal all the time. As my mum says in her positive way, the longer you live, the worse things are going to happen to you. Okay, thanks, Mum. But yours happened really publicly. That has another strata to it that is brutal. So you start the show in all good faith, all goodwill. I think the important thing to note too is that has not occurred to me before, but you must have been so energetically different to your predecessor, who was Tracy Grimshaw, right? So that's a taste that the public then has to learn to deal with. People don't like change anyway in their viewing. So you come on, that's another lightning rod aspect. And then suddenly you comes in, as our mutual friend Sarah Harris says, she said about you, she is pure sunshine.
Oh, I love Sarah.
So you come in pure sunshine. And what happens?
Oh, I'll never forget the next day. And this was before Twitter and all of it was before social media. So really it was newspapers.
Letters to the editor.
Yep, emails.
Right.
That was
and letters, probably snail mail letters.
Hideous snail
mail.
Phone
calls.
Yeah, all of that. But the day after, I remember, and I was so excited, but then the day after I remember there was this article where I was likened to a velociraptor. You know those awful creatures on Jurassic
prehistoric.
Park? And basically my hair, my weight, my laugh, everything. It was horrible. It was this awful article. And I remember just initially going, oh, that's, But often what happens is you think that's it, but it wasn't the end of it. It was just the start of a very public,
almost a campaign.
yes. And I
Okay.
couldn't ever work out why. But again, I don't want to waste energy on that. But it began with this particular column, and then it just continued. And I'll never forget, there was this TV guide. It was when there was like colour TV guides, and there was this headline, "The most annoying person on television." And there was me. It was me.
Oh.
And I remember opening that on a Sunday morning and just being in floods of tears because I thought, like, what? And at the time, like Petey, my darling husband, he was doing 60 Minutes. So he was away for 8 months of the year.
Wow.
And so it kept going.
When you opened the newspaper that day, was he home or he was away?
He was away.
So you were on your own?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it wasn't, but it was daily. And I remember, again, with the snail mail, that people would send me letters. And I remember this particular one, someone had sent me, again from a TV guide, and they'd highlighted all the awful things and then wrote me a letter about how awful I was. And it was mind-boggling that people could be so cruel. And I remember then saying to the receptionist at 9, "Can you please go through my mail so I don't..."
Were they not already doing that?
No.
So there was no protection for you coming into this role new. Nothing had been constructed around you.
So I said, "Can you just make sure that doesn't get to me?" And so it was just this sense of it kept like things just kept happening.
Right.
And
you were turning up every morning at 3:45.
Yep.
Ding.
And I'll never forget, Kate, a particular boss saying to me, "Oh, there've been complaints about the way you laugh. Can you stop laughing?" And I made the mistake of listening to him. So I stopped laughing for a time.
Oh, Jess.
But it was a really good lesson because I now would never, ever listen to someone telling me not to be myself.
What are you without your laugh?
Exactly.
Who were you in that period?
Yes. Who was I? Indeed.
Yes.
And so because I was grappling with how do I fit this role, this mold of what they expect or what people want me to be like. But the real lesson for me was I will never, ever listen to anyone telling me to be less than who I am. And that is something that I tell my daughters. Don't ever, ever let anyone take your shine or your power of who you are. But when you're in the midst of this sort of time, you lose your way, and that was a mistake I made, but I would never, ever do that again.
The steel is tempered in the fire.
Of course.
How else would you know that?
Of course.
How else would you have learnt that? To know how it is to be diminished and to know how it is to not be truthful to your essential self. The irony being that your essential self was what got you the job in the first place. Maybe because there was a changing of the guard. Do you think it had been, you weren't the captain's pick?
Again, who knows? And I'm not going to waste energy on that because what I want to think about that time is what I learnt. I learnt what I was made of. I learnt what mattered and who mattered. And even though I've mentioned the negative things, what kept me going was the kindness of people. There were beautiful people who would come up to me in the street and give me a hug and say, "We love you, keep going."
People knew then
Yes. Well,
People
they
could
could
tell.
see. They
Yeah,
could
right.
see. They could read things. They were
Yeah.
hearing things.
Yeah.
And then people would send me emails. People would send me letters. So the
And
receptionist, what she would do each morning was, this was in the, like, manila folders. There'd be a manila folder in my dressing room that had all my scripts and things.
Of course, she was a good receptionist.
That's right. Unlike me.
Right. Yes. Yes.
She would have on the top of my notes all of the lovely emails from people that she would have there. So before I'd go on, there was all of this positivity. So that kept me going. I had amazing emails, letters, calls from people in the media, people I looked up to, people I admired enormously, and that kept me going. The late, great Peter Harvey, I remember he sent me a wonderful email about, you know, the
Peter Harvey, Canberra.
Yes, and it was so beautiful what he said about, you know, the caravan will keep going, you know, just keep on keeping on. And Jana Vent, who I still want to be when I grow up.
Yes.
I remember she took me aside and said, hang in there, because when you least expect it, it's going to turn, and there will be no rhyme or reason to why that it will suddenly turn, but you hang in. And the other thing that I really discovered, and I've always been stubborn, but I thought, I'm not going to let other people win. The best thing I can do is show up every day and do my job. So, sure,
How
you
long
can
was
get
this
rid
period?
of me.
How long was that period of the vilification campaign?
The whole time.
Which was how long before you got
Well,
pregnant?
It was, I got pregnant, well, it's because I was going through IVF. So I became, I think in the August, I might have announced I was pregnant.
Right.
So 8 months into the role.
Wow.
And yes, it would have been. And then I went on maternity leave and then didn't come back. But the sort of sense of showing up every day.
The stubbornness.
The stubbornness. So the thing is, I knew that they wanted to get rid of me and that they were going to get rid of me.
Oh, that's
I
a
knew
horrible
that.
feeling.
I knew that. But I thought.
How did you know?
Because
the vibe.
But not even the vibe. If there is a negative campaign that is waged about you publicly across media, and then I remember actually a Current Affair did a story about me being the most annoying person on television.
What, the same network?
Yes. So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And I'd been told subsequently by a good friend that publicity had been instructed not to promote any stories, good stories about me. So I knew, so that was how. I mean, if people want to look after you, you'll be looked after.
Yes,
and
particularly a network that had the might of Channel 9 at that time.
So I knew they wanted to get rid of me, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to make this really hard for you in the sense of I'm going to keep showing up. What can I control in this situation? I can't control what these people think of me, what their plan is for me, but I can control how I show up every day.
I listened to your big talk. In fact, your first episode of your podcast, so 2021, I think, was with Karl Stefanovic. And he apologises to you. It's a really beautiful apology. That guy's good at apologies, very good at apologies. He apologised to you. He said he was not the man he should have been, and he was not the co-host he should have been. And it was only really through listening to that I got the sense of how enormous it was what had happened to you. And it was the first time you'd really had a conversation about it. And that was 15 years after it had happened. And you said, it means a lot to me. I could hear how it helped rebuild something in you, that no matter how strong you are and you were like a fortress, hearing the truth and hearing that it wasn't you, how did that feel?
It was incredible. I knew it wasn't me, but I think hearing Karl apologise to me was very important because that was the first time we'd spoken.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I hadn't heard from him. And so it takes a lot, I think, guts and courage on his behalf to show up and say that. Because he could have said, I'm not coming on your podcast.
Well, and to be the first guest.
Yes. And it did mean a lot to me because we have to be able to have hard conversations about tough times in our life. And that was a particularly hard time. And it was also, I suppose, a recognition from him.
Yes.
That he had a responsibility too.
Yes. That he had not lived up to.
That he'd let me down.
Yes. So you're pregnant with Allegra, which should be a time of enormous joy.
It was. And
Good.
The thing was, that kept me going. She was my secret. She was my real sense of, you know what, all of this noise doesn't matter because I have something far more meaningful, powerful and important that is happening in my life.
Was Pete away then? Pete was away still? Your husband was still overseas? So you're secretly pregnant?
Well, yes. So secretly pregnant, and it was, I waited, well, you know, you wait until the 12-week mark till you can tell people, but it was this wonderful time and I was not going to let anything detract from that. And having gone through IVF, I knew how precious it was to have
hard fought.
Yes. And that was what mattered.
So you're on mat leave. How do you find out that you've been boned?
Again, that word, Kate.
I know, but the word is has become a shorthand for not only a sacking, but a certain experience of a sacking and a certain execution of something.
It wasn't even sort of outright to begin with. It was suggested to me. Well, what was happening was there were articles that were coming out about me when I was on maternity leave.
Right.
Already.
And they weren't lovely, rah.
No.
Here's Jess and her baby.
No.
Right, okay.
However, and then it was suggested to me that there was a press release released that because of the demands of motherhood, I'd decided to stand aside.
News to you?
Yes, and I said I'm not doing that. And I'm not releasing that, and because that isn't true. And they'd, I mean, I don't want to get into all the he said, she said. It's I don't think anything can be gained from that. I think someone was already employed to take over my role before but again,
right.
Let's not get into all of that.
Yes.
And in the end, it was appalling that I remember having meetings with my lawyer, breastfeeding in the morning, putting breast pads into my bra, going to have meetings with my lawyer, and just thinking, what has become of me? And I remember lying on my front lawn in tears, just thinking, what is going on? And I got to a point where I didn't have the energy to take them to court. And I was really torn because I thought, what am I going to tell Allegra about what I did in terms of standing up for what's right? But in the end, I decided I have to do what's right for me now.
And you had postpartum
I had postnatal depression.
Yeah.
However, it hadn't developed at that point.
Right.
But it did develop, and you can say, why did I have postnatal depression? Combination of factors. It's very common. Women who go through IVF.
Yes.
When you have a baby, the hormonal change. I have a family history of mental illness. My mum's got bipolar, and you have massive life changes at the same time.
And you've been subjected to a campaign of public persecution.
So I had all of that happening. So it's little wonder that I then developed postnatal depression. And in a funny way, I'm so the way life does sort of turn out. It's again, that was just a small part, public part, but I learnt so much about myself. But then going through the postnatal depression, learning to be gentle on myself, learning that I didn't have to be perfect, and I thought I had to be perfect. In my career.
Well, you tried being perfect.
Exactly.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work. And my career had always been, I'll work hard, I'll get this result. I worked hard, finally had a baby. I was doing everything right, but I was falling apart as a mum. I felt like a failure. I didn't have a job. I'd been someone who had defined who I was through my identity through work. I didn't have that any longer. I felt like I was a failure. And it was such an awful time in my life. And I never, ever want another mum to feel as alone as I felt. And that's why I talk about my postnatal depression still, because it is the most isolating time, because there is this myth around motherhood still that it's meant to be the best time of your life and easy, and you know what you're doing. And for a lot of women, it's not. And that is not of your choosing. You simply have an illness that you need help to get through.
Interesting though, those external factors as well, to take those into account of what was happening to you internally. How was it? Because sometimes I think it's harder for the people that love you to watch you endure what's happening than it is even for you. It's hard enough for you. How was your husband? Because he was also at the same network. So that must have been crazy for him.
Oh, it was. And it was terrible for him. And there were a number of times where he was like, I'm leaving. And I said, you can't leave because, well, not you can't leave, but why implode both of our careers? Don't do that. Not be the bigger person, but don't let this define everything. But it was terribly hard for Petey. And he, though, is such a darling man. And I mean, I was able to pretend to him that I was all right because I was very good at putting on the mask. I'd had a lifetime.
Wake up whistling.
Yes, of experience of doing it in my family, in my career. But I got to the point where I thought, I can't pretend anymore. I've got to tell him. And he was such a darling because he just took me in his arms and he said to me, it's going to be okay. And that's what you need to hear from someone when you tell them you're not coping.
Yeah.
And
what had you said to him?
Well, I said we'd been talking and he was saying, oh, I'm so, you're doing so well. And he calls me Pussycat because I'm a crazy cat lady. Oh, Pussycat, I'm so proud of you. And, oh, it's so wonderful. And I said, well, I said, it's not. I said, I'm really frightened. I'm really frightened that I have postnatal depression. And he took me in his arms and he said, it's going to be okay. And that was what I needed to hear, because it was so very scary saying that out loud. And for anyone who's listening, who is having those thoughts in their head, to then put voice to them is scary, because it's an admittance that I'm not okay. But by putting voice to it, it begins your recovery. And I really urge people to do that, because you don't have to do it on your own. And it's so common.
Well, you can't do it on your own.
Well, you can't, but unfortunately so many people think they have to, and they wait too long. And then the longer you wait, the harder it is to get back to yourself again.
Yes, and also you're trying to do something, you're trying to pull yourself out of a hole when you're at your weakest.
Yes, exactly.
Then you had a period of, what did your life look like after that? So you started treatment. You
love my antidepressants.
Yeah, got your meds.
Still take my meds. I love them.
Yeah.
So began antidepressants. I was lucky because the ones that were prescribed for me were the right ones.
Yeah,
they worked.
Right. That is not always the case.
Not always the case.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful psychiatrist. I would see her.
Not always the case.
Exactly. So again, all these things worked well for me. And I know for a lot of people it's not as simple as that. Often the struggle is you ask for help and the right help isn't available.
Yes.
And it began sort of a, what's the word? Because journey is such a ridiculous word, but I began.
Well, a rising of you.
Yes, a rising, and also I learnt more about myself, and I'm still learning. I'm still not there yet, and I think having the postnatal depression, in a funny way, was one of the best things that could have happened to me, in the sense of it really taught me to be gentle on myself. It taught me I didn't have to be perfect. It taught me
you could be a crap housewife.
I could be a crap housewife. I could be quirky and crazy and dye my hair different colours and do craft and do things that brought me joy and not have to be perfect.
What was when you really leant into the crap housewife thing, which was territory that sort of then became crowded, but when you started it, nobody else was really doing that. What was the process where you gave yourself permission to do that?
Well, it was a process of, I like to liken it to being a crap housewife was like the phoenix rising from the ashes of my postnatal depression. Right. It was my reclaiming my imperfection and my vulnerability and being enough, that I didn't have to be perfect, that I didn't have to know how to breastfeed. I didn't have to have perfect meals for my kids. They didn't have to have perfectly brushed hair, and we'd have meltdowns and that was okay. And I didn't have to have a tidy house, and it was okay to fall apart.
What did you have? So we know the things that you didn't have and that you didn't do, but what did you learn was your strength?
My strength was that, that's a tricky question. What was my strength? That's a really hard, it's hard.
Well, I think I know what it is, but sometimes it's easier to see it from the outside.
Yeah.
And I would say your strength was happiness.
Well, joy. My strength is my capacity for joy, because I think happiness is this idea of, I have to always be happy, but joy is more deliberate, and you have to be you have to kind of chase joy, and it's pockets of joy. So you can feel unhappy and you can be having a crappy day, but you can think, where's my joy in today? So for me, my joy was seeing you today, but I've put on some sparkly stockings under my lacy dress.
Beautiful.
And pink lippy. So that's my strength, that I chase joy, and I want more of that in my life. And not only for me, I want other people to embrace that, because there's so much darkness and gloominess in the world, and you can feel powerless in that. And what we can do, though, is go for those pockets of joy. And I want that to almost be my way of combating the nonsense, the noise, the hate, the sort of like, what? Why go down that echo chamber? No, let's do the echo chamber of joy, or not even echo chamber. Let's reach for that. Why not spread that? It doesn't mean I don't care about those things or I'm not mindful of those things, but I'm making a deliberate choice not to buy into that hate. I'm making a choice to look for that joy and to encourage other people to look for that, because it's too easy otherwise to be negative.
Now, all right, that is so true. But what you are describing is the Academy Award principle, which is a comedy never wins an Academy Award. What wins Academy? Yeah, but what wins Academy Awards?
I've never heard of that.
It's a thing with actors where you're always like, you know, make a nose out of putty, make people cry, you'll win an Academy Award. A comedy's never won an Academy Award. The world responds to pain, cruelty, fear. Instilling fear in people, we learnt during the pandemic, can make people do anything. What the world doesn't value is people who come in open-hearted with a hearty laugh and a healthy snort. People somehow underestimate the value of that. To hear you say how important it is beautiful. And I do think, I feel that part of your redemption round was also doing Studio 10 with that gentle morning audience who loved that wake up and to start the day with you, where you were understood and loved by the people that you were doing the show with, Sarah Harris, who we've mentioned, Ida Buttrose, Joe Hildebrand.
Beautiful Nisi, Denise Drysdale, is one of my besties.
Yeah, and people loved you, and did you learn to, were you like one of those Chinese sun bears, you know, they open the cage door but they're too scared to walk outside because they've never stood on grass? Were you like that at the start?
No, I wasn't.
You just came out.
I came out because what I loved about Studio 10 was that I could be myself. And I was given permission to be myself. And in the interim before I did Studio 10, I did a whole lot of other really fun, crazy, for want of a better word, things that allowed me to be me. So, you know, there was a time when the phone didn't ring and I thought, am I ever going to get a job again? Will anyone ever employ me again? And then I realised I just had to sort of reinvent myself and do things for me, and then let's see what happens. I did singing lessons. I was a terrible singer. I sort of had fantasies of being on the stage and doing musical theatre, and ended up narrating a musical in Geelong and other places. But I had so much fun because I met these creative, beautiful souls. And one of my dearest friends now I met through that. And so I met people who encouraged me to do things for the sake of the joy it brings, as opposed to the goal at the end.
Right. But you know, you said you were like, is the phone going to ring again? In the meantime, Karl's career was going like that, how did you find the grace?
Well,
to not-
again, I don't want to waste energy on that
Right.
because it's putting energy into what matters.
Yes,
And
okay.
people who matter.
So that was a mental discipline that
Yes.
you would execute.
Yes, but also there's far bigger, better things. I mean,
Well, of
I
course.
had by then Giselle. I was doing Weekend Sunrise, which I loved. That was so much fun with beautiful Sammy, Samantha Armitage. And I had a ball doing that show. And I was able to do that on the weekends and, you know, be with my girls. And I was able through all of that time to sort of find myself again. I did Dancing with the Stars.
That's right.
And that was great.
Yeah.
And that was a good lesson for me because I had this idea in my head, this warped idea that I'm going to win. And then when I win, then I'll redeem myself and I'll get back on telly. I can't dance.
Yeah.
And like Katie's like, but that I discovered, that was the first way of realizing the joy just in doing something and realizing it's what you do along the way and what you learn about yourself as opposed to an end game in this. And so it helped me do zigging and zagging of things. I auditioned for Play School and I remember doing the audition and thinking, oh my God, I've lost my mind. What am I doing? But it was fun. And I'm so glad I gave that a go.
And even when you stepped aside from Studio 10, what was the thinking then?
Well, I had done that for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I loved it. But like anything, there's a season for things in your life. My daughters Allegra was just starting high school. Giselle was in primary school and I knew my girls needed me more. And
how could you tell?
I just knew that it was more to how I was feeling. Each morning it was harder. It was more work. And of course work is work. And there are some days where it's tougher than others, but there was less joy. It was more grind.
And more fraught with arrangements and
yes, it was I was just more worn down and I didn't like the person I was becoming at home to the people I loved most. I didn't like that I was being snappier and more irritable and just tired. Creeping through the week. And I got to a point where, and I appreciate that it's not as straightforward for many women. I was lucky because with Petey's work, I was in a position that I could take a step back.
Yes.
We weren't reliant on the two salaries.
He
was because when I first told him, he was like, because he's very sensible, whereas I'm a bit more, no, come on, let's do it. He's more measured. And we're on holidays and I said to him, I'm going to leave Studio 10. And he said, Pussycat, are you sure? Because you love that. And I know you get so much out of it. Are you going to be bored if you leave? He said, why don't you give it a few more months? So I did. And I went, it was sort of, I think in about the March or the April, and I just thought, I have to listen to what my heart is telling me. And as women, we don't often do that enough, that we try and logic things away. But my heart was saying, you need to take a break. You need to step away from this. You are not happy. And I had to really go, you know what? You're right. I'm not happy. I'm going to leave. And that was scary as well because I thought, you know, I've worked so hard to get to this position, but also to do something that is me, that I do love, and to walk away from a group of people that I love. But I don't regret it. I'm so glad I was brave. Sometimes we've got to be brave and make those calls. But you know why? Because I was present for my family. And it may sound old-fashioned, but it was the right thing for our family. Allegra needed me, Giselle needed me, and
and your husband needs you.
Yes, yeah. He needs me less.
That's what you think. That's what
yes,
you think.
True. No,
I
you're
don't.
right.
Yeah, I think sometimes we take for granted.
No, you're right. We do. We just think they'll just be there ticking over.
Everyone likes attention, don't
True.
they?
No, you're
of
right.
Of the right kind.
Yes.
Of the right kind. Final question for you, Jess Rowe. In your discovery of yourself, your continued discovery of yourself, and your conversations with people on your podcast, will Eddie Maguire be one of them?
No.
Okay. All right. He'll be very disappointed. Someone better call him and tell him he's been boned.
Now, you know, I do not like that word.
I wish you every continued happiness in your joy hunting.
Thank
You're
you.
a beautiful woman. As Sarah Harris said to me, you are pure beauty, pure sunshine and pure beauty. And there's not enough of that.
Oh, thank you, Kate. Well, but let's all lean into that. That's really my message for people, that I believe we underestimate how much people want the hope and the joy. And if that is, if people do more of that, then that's how we rise and keep rising.
Amen. Well, that, my friends, was Jessica Rowe. One of the things I kept thinking about during this conversation was how easy it would have been for her to let those difficult years define her, to become smaller or quieter or more cautious. Instead, she seems to have done the opposite. The woman who once was told her laugh was too much has reshaped her life around being unapologetically herself. And I think that's why so many people connect with her, not because she's perfect, but because she's willing to be seen exactly as she is. Thank you for listening to No Filter. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might enjoy it also. I'm Kate Langbroek. I'll be back next Monday.